welcome along to the two-man wall with Johnny Ward and the Hansford PC clerk. And I have to say, I'm not on Twitter very much nowadays. I have no idea what this is. What is it, Hansford PC clerk? Otherwise known as Adam Russell.
I'm not going to explain the video because if you delete your Twitter account, it's your own fault if you miss out on absolute viral social media gold, such as the Hanford Parish Council debacle. So all I'm going to say, Johnny, is you have absolutely no authority here, Johnny Ward. Absolutely none at all.
I have no idea what that means, but you're still a fan of the old tweet machine.
Love it, mate. It's like the Wild West up there, isn't it? It's great. We miss you though. We miss your outspoken views.
I don't miss Twitter. And Twitter doesn't miss me, but it does miss tips like Gundogan from last week. This was interesting. I backed Man City, to be honest, in the game. Partly because I fancied him, partly out of absolute annoyance that I had lost a few quid on the big race. Of course, shouldn't do this, but I was like, yeah, if I were 50-50 about having a bet, got to have a bet now anyway. I thought Liverpool came into the game and really in a really bad place. Anyway, you'd of course tipped Gundogan to score anytime 14-5. The big man steps up 12 yards out. What are you thinking?
Well, I thought we also tipped, so I think our double price shout was Gundogan and 2-0 Man City. So at 0-0, Gundogan steps up to the penalty just for our time. I think we're bang on it. And then when he popped up with the first goal, I thought, okay, we're on for the double price winner, but we'll definitely take Gundogan any time at 14-5, especially after the United game, because we of course tipped up Cavani any time over 2.5 goals and United to win at 5-2. But for a last-minute goal, we were denied another winner on the Saturday as well. So it was good to bounce back on the Sunday in the big game.
Yeah, that was a mad game. Obviously, the late equaliser. The title race kind of looks like it's over now, really. Man City more or less on back. But before we get to VAR, and I know people are probably fed up of listening to debates on VAR, but I think Adam and I have a fairly similar view on this. I just want it gotten rid of, to be honest. I absolutely hate VAR. Just the weekend that was in it, Liverpool, I'd be a little bit worried about their prospects finishing the top four now. I had a debate with Dan McDonald, my sidekick, on off the ball on the radio on Saturday. Was it last Saturday, the week before? Last Saturday, and he says he still thinks they'll basically cruise into the top four. Now they'd probably, if teams are to finish ahead of them, it'll be the two Manchesters, Leicester and Chelsea probably. So, but Liverpool's form, Adam, I don't know that. Like, I mean, if you have Alisson having a meltdown on Sunday, you're kind of then you maybe do start to worry a bit as well. They're 1-4 with Star Sports for a top four finish, and Chelsea, who I think were 2-1 not long ago, the new coach are now 10-11.
I'd still back Liverpool to finish in the top four ahead of Chelsea. I think.
Yeah,
they've got players that are capable of competing for the title. It's just they've been on a bad run. It happens. They've been competing at the very highest level now, that team, for 2.5, 3 seasons. And at some point, you've seen it with Man City towards the end of last year and at the start of this year to a certain extent, that at some point those runs come to an end and you do go through a bad patch. I think Liverpool will bounce back at some point. We saw even in between the Man City game, they bounced back and they played well in those games in between. So I think Liverpool will finish in the top four. I'm not worried about that at all, really.
Yeah, they didn't play that badly at times on Sunday. First half, they had some decent chances and obviously got back into the game at 1-0. But I guess it's probably time to talk about the VAR situations. Just these red cards that were rescinded. And I think the point that you're making is that
Salah's penalty as well.
And Salah's penalty. So if you put all these kind of gurus on the pitch and they kind of still can't come up with the decision that's, ultimately deemed the right one by appeal, you've just also all the delay, the fact that it's taking the joy out of a lot of goals because everyone is looking over to the right to see if things are all right. The delay in the offside decisions, something I think that's probably been underplayed is I respect referees, I respect officials, and I respect the fact that their job has now become almost they're just there to pass on decisions rather than make them. And I don't think referees would be very appealed of the prospect of actually refereeing games in the Premier League now, because it can't be as much fun as it was. And my mother used to say to me when I was giving out about a little errand that she'd gotten me to run, she would say, "You're taking the good out of it." And I think VAR is taking the good out of football at the moment.
Yeah, we've obviously seen Souček and Bednarek both had their recent red card rescinded last week. And as you said, we've got 4 officials on the pitch. They're aided by a TV monitor that the referee can go and check. And they've got the lads at Stotley Park watching the game. And we're still coming back with decisions that are objectively wrong, that they're incorrect decisions. Even the Premier League panel have admitted these decisions were incorrect. And we know that these things impact games. David Luiz red card that somehow wasn't overturned, even though it was markedly similar to Bednarek's, it cost Arsenal the game. And there could be 3 vital points. You don't know the difference between a top 6 or a top 4 place and finishing outside. And that cost the club money. And that was the reason we brought VAR. That was the argument that was given for bringing VAR in the first place, is that getting these decisions wrong costs clubs in the long term. So it's not good enough that we're still getting these I was talking to you, and I'm a really big cricket fan, and obviously England are playing a test series in India at the minute.
Yeah.
Cricket, quite an objective game, especially when it comes to the video review system and how that works. Did the ball hit the bat? Yes or no? Did it bounce before it was caught? Yes or no? Football has proven itself way too subjective for VAR. Like, what is offside? Like, are you allowed to score with your shoulder but not your forearm or like your elbow? Like, what constitutes a goal scoring opportunity? What constitutes an attempt to play the ball? Like we've seen.
Well, here's one for you, right? When they can't tell me the exact moment that the ball left the passer's foot for a pass that is going into a striker. So in the sense that you can kind of caress the ball in a certain way by hitting it, where effectively you're talking about not a second, but like a lot more than a split second here in the movement of the ball just from your foot. How can you tell me exactly when it even left my foot for an offside that's then decided by the width of a betting slip? I'm not having it.
But then there's no consistency. They say, oh, you can't score with your arm. But there was a decision at the weekend where there was given out literally because his arm was offside. So it's like, okay, well, can you score with your arm? And we're in real danger of ruining a beautiful, beautiful sport by nitpicking over these tiny rules and having to kind of quantify these rules. And then we're talking about margins of error for offside. Why? What was wrong with obviously, so I support Bolton in League Two, so I watch a lot of football league and lower league football where it's still kind of quite a pure game in that sense. It isn't as
far more enjoyable.
It makes so much more enjoyable. And
obviously, I'm a League of Ireland man, Adam, and I remember putting up a poll on my Twitter days, and it was like, League of Ireland fans, would you like VAR? And it was something like 87% no.
No, and it's just, if we've had a great experiment of it, if anything, they're lucky that the fans haven't been in for quite a considerable amount of time, because some of these decisions, the fans would have had no idea what's really going on. I remember with the incident, with just having it up on the screen, like what the decision was, and just the people who have paid their money to be inside the stadium having less idea what's going on than the people who are so get rid of it altogether.
Couldn't agree more with a Bolton fan, and you've made a very good point about that as well. The people in the stadium being basically better off than the people who are watching at home. That's a tragic state of affairs. And
you remember the Southampton United game, the 9-0, and they had the penalty, I think, to make it 6 or 7-0, whichever it was. And it took 7 minutes to come to a decision on a penalty that I could see in the first instance was a dive. And
Kill me now.
They gave it as a penalty and it took 6 minutes and they were already 5-0 down. Like, why do we need that? Why can't we have, in cricket, they have a certain number of appeals. So let's put it in the manager's hands. Let's say to the managers, you've got 2 appeals a game. If you think that goal that they've scored was offside, or you think that you should have had a penalty, then you can ask it to be reviewed. And if it's overturned, then you can keep your review. If it's not overturned, then you lose one of your reviews. And if you don't have a review, then it's tough.
Don't think it's going to happen, but I'm completely with you. And for a man of your tender years, you speak with great kind of nostalgia for the old days and just great intelligence in general. The Hansford PC clerk, the Hansford PC clerk is here to stay. But are these managers here to stay? And this is an interesting one. So you've called it a difficult market to call, and these are the odds that we have at the moment for the next manager to be sacked. Steve Bruce 3-1. Because there are 3 teams who are struggling so badly this season, it looks like you have a milieu of teams who are not doing very well, but basically should be safe almost by process of elimination. And one of the teams that does look like it's doomed, obviously, is West Brom. And Sam Allardyce hasn't turned it around. In fairness, I'm not sure they've the players, but the decision to bring him in hasn't worked out so far. At 130, he is. Jose Mourinho 5-1 is interesting. It's a question of when for Jose. It's Spurs have had a poor season to my mind. And you have a very interesting angle on Scott Parker, who I don't think anyone would say he's done a particularly bad job this season with the Arsenal he's had at his disposal. But you do make the point. Fulham actually, in theory, could still pull it out of the fire. And if they were to do a kind of a get-rich-quick scheme or just see if they can turn it around, he's a 10-1 shot.
The angle on Scott Parker, I think, is not because he's a double-figure price at 10-1. And Fulham are obviously in the relegation zone, but they're probably the only team out of those three that has, I wouldn't even say a realistic chance, but at least some chance of mounting a real challenge to stay up if they can put a run together. So I think with Scott Parker, like you said, I don't think he's done a bad job, but I think we've seen it with Fulham the year that Scott Parker was installed, is they basically took the gamble that he would come in, there'd be a bit of a new manager bounce, and they might be able to put together a run of results to stay up. They obviously didn't, and they bounced back up. But I do wonder whether, if they were to say not pick up any points in, say, the next 2 or 3 games, whether they would just, whether the owners up there would just think maybe it's worth pulling a gamble just to bring someone in to try and get that bounce and try and get a bit of a run going.
It's so much money involved if it were to go right,
I think 10-1 is a very, considering where Fulham are in this equation, I think that's a really generous price for him to be next. I think Steve Bruce is the favourite at 3-1. Will Newcastle pull the trigger? It feels like they're not really bringing in players. Like they're not really developing the squad. Feels like they're in the holding phase while they wait for Ashley to sell the club. So I think Bruce, as long as they stay up, I think Bruce is safe, in my opinion. There isn't going to be a host of managers that want to come in and take over from Steve Bruce at this point, I don't think. Sam Allardyce, like you say, hasn't really worked out with him at West Brom. He's 10-3, just 1 win in 11 since he came in, and averaging 3 goals a game conceded. But will they change again this season? I kind of think, what's the point? Even if new manager does come in, I don't think they've got enough. I think it's pretty clear now that they don't have enough to stay up. And to be fair, they brought in 5 players on deadline day, so they backed Sam in the transfer market to a certain extent. So I'd say his season. I think Jose though is an interesting one.
Well, they also play Man City at the weekend. They're 3s on City. You expect Spurs to lose that. I'd actually be pretty shocked if City didn't win that game. As to the pressure, top 4 for me, not going to happen.
No, it doesn't look like it's going to happen, does it? Top 4, just 3 wins in 10 so far this year. The only advantage that I think he might have is the fact that the League Cup final's not until April this year. So obviously Tottenham and Levy in general are desperate to win a trophy, desperate to get some major silverware. So I do wonder whether they would hold on to Jose at least until after the League Cup final. And then you're in April then, so you hold on to him until the end of the season because it's probably already too late anyway. So I think 5-1 is an interesting price for Jose. If, for example, they go on a run in the next few games and they don't pick up many points in the next 3 to 5 games, they might do. I just think that League Cup final is always kind of going to be there. And do you sack a manager who's got taken into cup final? I don't know. But yeah, 5-1 is an interesting price. But yeah, my pick, not necessarily because I think he'll be the next one sacked, but because I think 10-1 is a very generous price, will be Scott Parker.
Just briefly as well, in terms of those 2 games, Manchester City against Tottenham Saturday at 5:30, Leicester against Liverpool is a massive game for the top 4, a massive game. That's 12:30. And it's interesting. Liverpool are fairly strong favourites. They tend to do very well against Leicester. Have produced brilliant performances against Leicester. Definitely not going into the game in the sort of form that you'd get much confidence from. And then you like one at a 19-1 poke in the Etihad. For me, this is a question of how far from Man City. Probably getting about 4 to 5 -1 or something like that. But you like one at a price.
Yeah, everything points to Man City, doesn't it? Really, in the evening kickoff on Saturday, they've won 13 on the spin in all competitions, 10 in the Premier League. They've only conceded 3 goals in the last 14 games. Like that is out of this world defensively. And it's
Liverpool conceded 4 on Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. So. And I think, they played well against Liverpool, and I think everything points to the form, points to City, the history of, the games between Tottenham and City at the Etihad. I think Spurs have won 1 of the last 6 away games. Everything points towards Man City. Interestingly, Phil Foden obviously got a lot of the plaudits. And
he was amazing on Sunday.
Yeah, and he was. But I also think Raheem Sterling maybe potentially didn't get as much credit for his performance. Thought his job was kind of twofold. He pinned Alexander-Arnold back and made Trent have to think about what was behind him and the space behind him. And he spent a lot of time tracking back rather than obviously what is his strength, which is creating things for Liverpool moving forward. And I don't think he beat his men. Like, he ran at players, tried to go past them. He tried to commit defenders, which when you're trying to play in that system with on the counter attack with City, it's so helpful to have someone who can dribble the ball past players and is not afraid to take someone on. And I think he played really well. He deserved his goal. He's 11-10 score anytime against Spurs at the weekend. It's obviously not a huge price, but I think he seems like he's in good form, and I think he could pop up with another goal. 19-1, he said. Stones obviously had one disallowed against Liverpool, and he scored a few goals recently. And I just think that City could well score from a set piece on Saturday. I think Spurs will sit back, and I think the set piece will be a good opportunity for City to put in some quality and get the likes of Diaz and Stones and Fernandinho and Rodri, etc., attacking the ball. So I think Stones could pop up with a goal from a set piece. So Man City to win, both teams to score. Both teams not to score, and John Stones score anytime. That's 19-1 for Star Sports.
Interesting 9-1 shot out. Tipped Salah at the start of the season, but stupidly didn't back him to be top scorer, and he's really, really flying it. He's one player who's kind of most basically maintained his form, take the penalties as well. And interesting show here.
Doesn't feel like he's playing that well. He always seems to score goals even when it doesn't feel like he's playing particularly.
Yeah, the front three have. I mean, I think you'd give them a 5 out of 10 if even this season. But in fairness to Salah, he's produced goals in big games against Man United, obviously against Man City. Even though I actually thought in ways he might play better this season. I find it very hard to knock him, and he's still scoring goals. He's been really consistent on that score. You have an interesting one here. Liverpool to win, both teams score. Salah anytime. You expect if Liverpool win, Salah will score here. Both teams to score with Liverpool's makeshift defence, and even Alisson thrown in there. So that's an interesting 7-2 shot if you want to back Liverpool, who are obviously just 21-20 to actually win the game.
Yeah, I think both teams to score 4-7. If you're looking for a bit of a safer one, it's just a nice look there. I think, like you say, Liverpool's defensive problems are well discussed on this programme and obviously many others. But so I think Leicester will probably score, but I think Liverpool can win. I think like to see Liverpool really try and go after this game a little bit more.
Yeah.
They were obviously criticised a lot after the City game. And I don't think they were that bad for large parts of the game. But
they weren't.
I just don't think there was enough energy on the ball. The tempo wasn't quite off. They didn't look to me like they were trying to score goals. You remember the seasons that they've gone and they've got wins at the Etihad in the Champions League, and in the league, I think they won their 4-1 a few seasons ago. The pace and the tempo of how they pressed, and when they did get the ball and they won it in high areas, it was 2 or 3 passes before someone's getting a shot away. And I think we need to find that Liverpool again, and they need it soon.
I couldn't agree more, Adam, and it will be interesting to see. But I don't know. I would be very wary of Liverpool at that price against a good Leicester side. Come the weekend,
nice little even shout probably by the time.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, a little plug for the tipping challenge. The last tipping challenge I was talking about with the lads was Ed Dark and the boys for the Super Bowl, and they were miles off. They were all over the Chiefs, and of course the Chiefs were absolutely battered. But Ed has no right to reply here. So anyway, let's go on to football tipping challenge.
Yeah, just the 6 Premier League games on this week's tipping challenge. So we've made it a bit easier with the football on this week. You're going up against our 2 traders, and all you've got to do, we got 1 selection. If you can beat our traders, whoever performs the best, gets the most selections correct, will win a £200 free bet. And everyone who beats our traders, which, as you pointed out on Super Bowl weekend, was pretty much everyone, will get a £10 free bet.
Yeah, we shall see. But yeah, Man City, I think I'd be very confident that they'll do the job comfortably against Spurs. Thanks very much, the Hansford PC Clerk.
See you at next week's Parish Council meeting.
Yeah, and whether we have the authority or not, we hope that you enjoyed the show. That was a long one, but hopefully we'll give you some nice price winners. And we'll be back next week.